When Biggie filled up the tank in Columbus this afternoon, he paid $3.09 a gallon. The drive to Detroit was 200 miles. At 15 miles per gallon, and 15 is a generous estimate considering the Econoline, 350, is loaded with 4 band members, 2 crew guys, our bags and all the amps, drums, and guitars. We've already burnt $41.19 in fuel. We haven't yet played a note, and the one thing I know for sure about tonight's show is that we'll lose money. At closing time, Biggie will settle up with the doorman, and then he'll stuff the bills into the gray pouch he keeps stashed in the dashboard. Tomorrow, tonight's $25 take will get us a third of the way to Milwaukee. Here in the minor leagues, bands don't play for sex, fame, and fortune. They play for gasoline. An economist would tell us that by driving 3 hours to perform for 5 people, we have not behaved in our monetary self-interest. It's Econ 101, supply and demand. There clearly isn't much demand for Watershed in Detroit, so we would have been smart to cut off the supply by staying home, get a good night's sleep, wake up tomorrow and commute to our real jobs, jobs that actually pay. I used to think of gigs like this as investments in the future. We're paying dues now, I tell myself, for the big rock star payoff later. The trouble is, I'm now 38 years old. So's Colin. Dave is 43. Pooch is the youngest at 35. By music business standards, we're too damn old for the rock star payoff. So now I have to wonder, what future? Besides, we already had a shot at stardom, and we whiffed. Remember your crappy high school band? The one you formed after you finally got that guitar for your birthday? You practiced down in the basement, learning Smoke on the Water and Iron Man and You Really Got Me. Crossing your fingers you'd stick together long enough to write a song that some other crappy high school band might one day cover. A couple years later you called it quits, bowing to the entropic forces that went to work starting with that very first practice. Egos, insecurities, differing motivations. Because crappy high school bands are supposed to break up. Like the Bryan Adams song, Jimmy Quit, Jody Got Married. My crappy high school band is headlining Smalls tonight. Colin and I started it the summer before our junior year. We didn't know Dave and Pooch back then, but Biggie was with us, setting up gear and getting us to the stage on time. In the years since, we've played over 1,000 shows in 34 states and 116 cities. We've humped our amps through the doors at CBGB 10 times. We played the House of Blues on the Sunset Strip, the Metro in Chicago, the Rat in Boston. We played on South Street in Philly, on 6th Avenue in Austin, at the 7th Street entry in Minneapolis, and above a gay bar called Rod's in Madison. We've played 58 different venues in Columbus alone. Smalls Bar is the 15th place we've played in Detroit. Okay, now, how many of these do we think we can remember? Okay? All right. Smalls, the IROC, Finney's, Paychecks, Lily's 21,
St. Andrews,
Fallout.
What's that?
Fallout Shelter?
The Shelter, the Foundry,
Alvin's. That's a good one.
3D in Royal Oak.
You said Finney's, right?
The Ritz.
The Impound?
Yes, the Impound.
Hayloft.
I remember
Pretty
that
close.
Hayloft.
Jacoby's.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty good, right? I've got this all written down someplace. It's all very carefully researched. Trust me. I'm a professional. We've released 6 full-length albums, a batch of cassettes, 45s, and EPs, a couple videos, and a DVD. Colin, Biggie, and I have been together longer than the Beatles, the Doors, and Nirvana combined. Watershed's long haul hasn't been all sparse crowds and dive bars. At one point, we almost made it. We were limoed around Manhattan. We recorded in the same studio as AC/DC, Aerosmith, and Springsteen. We played arenas and amphitheaters, headlining shows in front of thousands, opening for bands everybody's heard of. We were treated to fancy dinners and promised by insiders that we were the next big thing. But we never had a hit song, never had a video on MTV, never won the notoriety that comes measured in songwriting residuals or on the Billboard Hot 100. And yet, somehow, we stayed in the game for 2 decades. like a hustling utility man with a great glove but no bat, a hitless wonder. By now, most musicians we've shared the stage with, famous and not, have packed away their guitars and decided to sell real estate or insurance. In the 50s, in fact, selling insurance was a euphemism for quitting. Hey, what's Bill up to? Bill could be a shoeshine boy or a CEO, but if he was no longer rocking, he was selling insurance. Then again, in the 50s, one nickname for the guitar was the starvation box. So it should surprise no one that rock and roll has always been a struggle. The story here is not that Watershed has had it tough. Every band has it tough. The story here is that most bands with Watershed's career arc quit long before they're reduced to playing for crowds they can count on one hand. So maybe playing this show is a little stupid. Maybe we booked this tour because we built an inertia that's stronger than our better judgment. But I suspect the real reason is a million times simpler and more complicated. Watershed has dragged ourselves up to Detroit because we're a rock band. And playing live, whether it's for 5 people or 15,000, is what rock bands do. Stupid or not. Here at the bar, Dave is catching Pooch and me up on the gossip from the country club. My Percocet dealer calls me Frankenstein now, Dave says. He goes wide-eyed and zombie-like, his arms straight and stiff. He's created a monster. Biggie's silhouetted by the jukebox, rubbing $1 on his jeans to iron it flat. He's given up the search for Colin. Joe the Animal has wandered over from the band side. Still no Colin? When none of us answer, he smiles and says, I'll hunt him down for you. And even though the Animal's voice is pure Michigander, something in that smile is reminding me of Quint, Robert Shaw's character from Jaws. And I'm bracing for him to follow up with, and I'll catch him and kill him for 10. Forget Colin, Animal, I say over the Replacements' Bastards of Young, which Biggie has blasting from the bar speakers. See this? I motion toward Dave and Pooch, toward Biggie at the jukebox and Ricky C down the bar. The 5 of us, this is the band. Pooch and Dave nod at this, one of our regular bits. Whenever 2 or 3 of us are separated from the rest, we badmouth the other guys. Say that we are the real band, regardless of who we happen to be at that moment. For all I know, Colin is standing out on the street right now telling anyone who will listen that he's the band. Who could blame him? The whole operation was his idea after all. Sparked in the 8th grade, the year he talked me into buying a bass. Colin and I spent our afternoons that summer sitting on the floor of his garage, prepping copies of the Columbus Dispatch for our paper route. His hair was short and blonde, the color of a Pony League infield baking in the August sun. Mine was feathered rusty brown, that same infield but sprayed with a hose. Our hands were newsprint stained and lined with rubber band welts. As we folded and rolled the papers, we'd talk Ohio State football, Reds baseball, and Georgia Championship wrestling. But mostly with QFM 96, Ohio's best rock, cranking from Colin's jam box, we talked Aerosmith, Bad Company, Blue Oyster Cult, Rainbow, Billy Squier, Bob Seger. We lived in the Columbus suburb of Worthington, named as the Ohio-shaped signs at the city limits said for Thomas Worthington, the father of Ohio statehood. Despite the historical pedigree, Worthington was a fairly run-of-the-mill Ington suburb. And by Ington, I mean you can put whatever prefix in front of Ington you want. In this case, it was Worth Ington, right? You get it. Town planners and real estate developers are suckers for Ington. Ington promises quiet charm, class, and distinction. When you walk through the threshold of an Ington home, you enter a community of ox roasts on the village green and sticky block parties where the fire department brings a hook and ladder to spray down the kids. Ington city councils pass zoning laws that mandate neo-colonial architecture. Downtown Ington is a painfully cozy strip, dotted with a hardware store, a dress boutique, a flower shop, an art gallery, an ice cream shop, and an old-time pharmacy. There are no golden arches in Ington. Instead, there's a tasteful wooden sign that seems to announce apologetically, McDonald's? You know the place. If not in Ington, then maybe a blank Hills or a blank Heights. Cul-de-sac pock towns your punk ass couldn't wait to bolt from. The cops had nothing to do but harass you and your buddies for ding-dong ditching or TPing or for whatever good old-fashioned neo-colonial trouble you could get into. When you were growing up there, you hated Ington. You hated it almost as much as you hated those spoiled pricks from your biggest sports rival, Upper Ington.